Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Franklin Board of Education meeting for Wednesday, March 9th, 2022. Can we have a roll call, please?
Yes, Mr. Alexandrovich.
Here.
Mrs. Sapersky.
Here.
Dr. Khan.
Here.
Dr. Bear. Here. Mr. Sprague.
Here.
And Mrs. Witkowski.
Here.
We are all present.
Great, and the meeting has been properly posted. Could we all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Item 3, I'm looking for a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved. Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Pleasant View Elementary School presentation. Miss OK, please.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
If I was the children, I would sit here.
Okay.
Well, I want to thank you for the opportunity to highlight some of the incredible things that are happening at Pleasant View Elementary School. It is an honor to serve this incredible learning community that is full of students who are passionate about learning. At Pleasant View, we are educating a generation of change makers who advocate for what they believe in and show the value of stewardship in so many ways. These are students who care deeply about the Pleasant View community and the larger Franklin community around them. In this presentation, you will see us highlight 2 of the many pieces that incorporate what we prioritize at Pleasant View. As Panthers, we prioritize deep learning and love of literacy. We care deeply about ensuring that students are progressing in literacy appropriately, but also doing so in a way that is meaningful and showcases ways that students can have their voices heard and become advocates for topics that are important to them. We will also be highlighting our Panther Pride Leadership Group. This group of 4th and 5th graders care deeply about their learning community and display that through their many acts of service, as well as modeling Panther Pride for others. We will start with our incredible 3rd grade teachers, who will give you a brief overview of the process used during this literacy unit.
Thank you for inviting us to share with you our recent opinion writing unit. This unit helps children see that their voices matter and that writing can change the world. When speaking to the Common Core standards, the educational focus was learning the foundations of argument writing and the basics of essay structure.
This unit aligns with the district goal of stewardship. We are teaching the students to care about their community, their school, and their peers. By using the power of their words and their voices, they are leaning into the value of stewardship. Those that wrote about their school are seeing the value of improving their school community. And those that wrote about changes in the world are working to improve their larger community. We have brought 3 students to share their work with you.
Thank you, Ms. Baker, Gordon, and Mitchell. I sincerely appreciate all that you do for our learners. Now we will have our 3 students read their pieces. Anya, Charlotte, Maddie, come on up.
Miss Pepper. Introduction. There's one person in PV that I think you should notice. She is Miss Pepper. It's because she helps our school in so many ways you can't even imagine. She is in charge of many difficult things. Her job looks easy, but the truth is, it's super tough. Chapter 1, COVID tracking. One thing she helps with that is really important is tracking COVID-19. She has to keep track of which kids are quarantined, which are in close contact, and which are tested positive or not. She has to communicate the information with the kids' parents, teachers, and the district nurses on a very timely manner. She's not just keeping track of COVID cases, She also needs to track which kids are absent because of COVID reasons and who came back. She just doesn't keep track of kids being away, but specifically for how many days each kid is away for. Chapter 2, Attendance. One other very hard task that she does is tracking attendance. Attendance is very hard because keeping track of which students are absent and which are not from hundreds of students doesn't seem really easy. The students that are absent, she has to check if parents left a message for her. If not, she has to contact their kids' parents. And the thing that makes tracking attendance most hardest is to contact parents until they reply. Tracking attendance is not just for the kids who didn't show up in the morning, but also for the kids who leave in the middle of the day because they need to go for a doctor's visit, maybe get sick in school, or parents pick them up for personal reasons. She has to cancel them out of the chart for the rest of the day. She keeps track of every kid coming and leaving school. Tracking attendance is useful not only just to check the kids' whereabouts, but also to make sure to improve their education, as well for kids that need more attention. Chapter 3, Health Room. She not only helps with tracking COVID and attendance, she also helps kids in the health room. The health room is like a mini hospital in our school. She takes care of kids with wiggly teeth. When we lose them, she gives us tooth necklaces that's plastic shaped like teeth. We use them to hold our teeth in. Some kids bump their heads on the play structures at recess. When they come to the health room, she gives them ice packs to help the pain. Other kids have headaches, so she checks their temperature to see if they're sick. She needs to check if it's COVID or not. She needs to take the next steps, and she will. If kids are damaged badly, she will take action. She needs to call the hospital and contact their parents right away. And if Miss Pepic wasn't doing her job, the school wouldn't be going as smooth as it's going now. Students should see how to make her job easier. The only reason we don't notice Miss Pepic is because she's always in the office working so hard. That's why I think you should notice Miss Pepic.
We should have popcorn and movie time every Friday at school. Do you like popcorn and movies? Yes? Well then how about popcorn and movie time every Friday at school? Then we need popcorn and movie Friday. Here's lots of reasons why. Here's a reason why we should have popcorn movie time every Friday at school. The first reason is you can watch an educational movie like The Magic Tree, The Magic School Bus, and more. The second reason you should have popcorn movie time is because everyone in class works hard and their brains hurt. In my class on Fridays, we try to work hard so we can get Friday free time. Friday free time is where we get prizes from dojo points. We, my classmates, can work even harder to get popcorn movie time on Friday. The third reason why you should have popcorn movie time is because you can enjoy your popcorn in the movie, but you could still be working in the middle of the movie. The fourth reason you should have popcorn movie time is because you can watch a reading movie like Story Time online, so you can do a read aloud. Another reason is because when your classmates or students are watching the movie, the teacher could do the work they still need to do. Also, there's another reason why we could have popcorn movie Friday. We could have 45 minutes for popcorn movie time, and that's how many minutes most of the subjects are. Would you now be willing to have popcorn movie time every Friday?
Wow.
She does have puppies.
Okay.
Why we should keep animals safe. Introduction. We shouldn't kill animals just to get our way. We should not test animals. That is cruel. That is not nice. People kill animals just to make clothes and shoes. Imagine if people killed you just to make clothes and shoes. That wouldn't be nice. How would it feel to you? Why can't you make the clothes and shoes when the animal dies? Can't you do that? That would be more nice to the animals. Reason 1. The first reason you should not kill animals is because people are littering. We should not litter. The next thing we know, animals are eating the garbage and dying right before our eyes. We cannot litter anymore. That is mean. Fact. 65 million years ago, a meteor hit the Earth, and only 50% of all the species on Earth stayed alive. Reason 2. The second reason we should not kill animals is because each time we kill an animal, they become more and more endangered. If you hear that one of a certain animal is getting more and more endangered, you should not try to kill or hurt that animal. Reason 3. The third reason we should not kill animals is because lots of people kill animals by testing them. When they test them, the animals can even become sick or they can even die. They can even test your favorite animal. Did you know that they kill elephants just to get their tusks? Elephants are nice and gentle animals. All that makes them stompy and mean is you trying to kill them. So it threatens the elephant to stomp and be mean. So don't try to hurt animals. Reason 4. The last reason is because lots of animals are going extinct each day. 1,000 species go extinct each year. This happens because diseases and habitat loss. Most animals are endangered because of habitat loss. It's because we keep cutting down trees and killing plants. That is where animals live. We are trying to save the animals, not kill them. Conclusion. Come with me and enjoy how nature is with all those animals. Now please don't kill animals. All those people in the world like nature and the wild just how it is. Stop killing animals.
Thank you, Charlotte, Anya, and Maddie. We sincerely appreciate learning more about what matters to you, and we thank you for your time. I also want to take a moment to thank Mr. Sprague, who visited one of our third grade classrooms and was able to hear a lot of opinions about a lot of things.
I certainly wish I had popcorn while I was doing it.
So we very much appreciate that. Now we will have our Panther Pride Leadership Group come up. This amazing group of 4th and 5th graders truly lead our learning community and ensure that we are all showing Panther Pride every day. To talk more about what they do, here are Carter and Sebi.
Hello, I am Carter and I will be talking about the purpose of the Student Leadership Team. The Student Leadership Team is an opportunity for leadership skills, service opportunities, and can make you a harder worker and team player because we all have to work together.
Hi, my name is Sebi. Today I'll be telling you about some of the achievements the Panther Pride team made. First, I'll tell you about how we give back to the community. Our food drive collected 4,900 items for the community, which fed people in the community from November to January. We also donated $441 for Heavenly Hats for people that lose their hair during cancer treatments and other conditions.
We are not only giving back to the city of Franklin, but we are also giving back to our Pleasant View community by making videos for the younger students. The videos help the students live Panther Pride on the playgrounds by modeling how to play games safely and being respectful. Since we are role models, we make videos to show the younger students how to live Panther Pride every day.
We like the Panther Pride team because it shows leadership skills and we can give back to our community.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Carter and Sebi, and thank you, Ms. Miller, who leads this incredible group of young people. As you can see, our learning community cares deeply about the priorities and values that we as a district care about. Pleasant View Panthers are stewards of the community, and we are learners who never miss an opportunity for growth. Thank you for allowing us to showcase 2 of the many ways that we display our Panther Pride. We wanted to end our presentation with the news coverage of the food drive mentioned earlier. Thank you again.
The schools. This week's school bulletin shows how generosity can become contagious. Pleasant View Elementary in Franklin recently held its annual food drive. The school's goal was to collect around 1,000 items for a local food bank, but in just 5 days, the students had brought in about 5 times that amount, thanks in part to one special second grader who asked for donations instead of presents for her birthday.
I just really wanted to help out my teacher and all the people in need. My class really wanted to help people out. So part of my class bought a lot of food, and I was really thankful for doing that.
Just so sweet. There was no prize for collecting the most food. Instead, the winning class got to help load the truck headed to the food bank at Faith Presbyterian Church. School officials say the church was overwhelmed, but now the food bank has enough to help people through January.
Thank you.
Easily and automatically pay employees and file.
Thank you, everyone. We'll move on to community comment in a few minutes. You can, Pleasant View people, feel free to stick around, but also feel free to get home if you like.
Thank you.
Oh, fun for sure. You're welcome.
Oh, sure. Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Here's the plasma computer.
Yeah. Is this an agenda item?
I have everything that you need.
Not my slide.
I do have your slideshow.
Leave that to.
Put this in with the
I've been trying to show
Whatever pops up is a good presentation.
That's, and I have another.
All right, item 5, community comment. Does anybody wish to make a community comment today? I didn't see anybody sign up, but. All right, no community comment. We'll move on to number 6. I'm looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All right, motion's been made and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. School board announcements. Are there any announcements by school board members? All right, item 8. School board calendar. There's a regular Board of Education meeting Wednesday, March 23rd, 2022 at the ECC at 6. Also a regular Board of Education meeting Wednesday, April 13th, 2022 at the ECC at 6. Needs to be open, please. Thank you.
They're very excited.
Item 9, District Administrator update. Dr. Miller, please.
Good evening. Thanks for coming this evening. Tonight, we're pleased to provide the board with an update on our coherence plan. Our building leaders, as you can see, are here, and they'll briefly share with you how they're moving forward with achieving the goals at their school, and then answer any questions that you might have. Mr. Milzer and I will be providing an overview of the ESSER funding for the district and the direction we're headed with receiving and utilizing those funds. A focus this week has been on the ACT test. Yesterday, all juniors participated in the ACT, and in order to provide them with the best environment and space to do that, our freshmen and juniors and seniors were doing at-home virtual learning experiences, and that went well. We have some good news to share also from the high school related to some of our activities and athletics. Our visual arts team took first place regionally and will now go to state April 1st. Our boys basketball team won regionals and they're going to move on to sectionals tomorrow night. And our gymnastics team won first in state this past weekend. So we're really proud of that. On a district level, we've had great success in hiring our next Assistant Superintendent of Business and Operations, and I'm pleased to share that Mr. Andy Cromie has accepted the position, and he's here this evening. He'll be able to stay for a portion of the meeting. Andy, if you'd like to point yourself out, there's Andy. Welcome, Andy. Mr. Cromie has served as a school business official for the last 9 years. He also serves as an adjunct professor at MSOE. He shared with us that he would like to work as part of an administrative team whose sole purpose is to prepare students academically, socially, and emotionally for their future success. So welcome, Mr. Cromie. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Reports, presentations, and other school board business. Well, first of all, does anybody have any questions for Dr. Miller? All right, early college credit and Start College Now request approvals. Mr. Volo, please.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Nice to get a return. Good evening, as Brian Carey should say. So, as you see in the memorandum, I organized it with some of the requests based on your past feedback. So at the very end, in the appendices, we have some historic looks at the last handful of years, and number of courses approved, number of courses taken, and number of courses successfully passed. What you'll notice this year, we have a significant number of course requests for fall and for summer, and largely because students want to make sure they get courses, so they request more than they can possibly take because they have all their alternate courses as well. So there's quite a few there, and they're noted approve and deny based on the criteria given to us by the state, as in if we offer a comparable course, then we do not have to approve it under these programs. If we do not, we have to approve it under these programs. So for example, you notice Calculus 2, we offer Calculus BC, so I can deny the Calculus 2 course request. General chemistry is the same as AP chemistry. So again, I can deny that request. Otherwise, they're all noted as such at the various institutions. So students casting some wide nets who are looking for something beyond the course offerings we have, or even beyond the dual credit courses we already have in terms of AP credit, capstone courses beyond what we offer, transcripted credit with MATC. So a lot of specialized things, but again, if you enjoyed the chart and sort of graphs on the back, I hope that helps show you how many courses have been taken in actuality versus how many are requested. So yes, it's a significant number, and we probably still won't have a ton taken because it's really hard to do high school and do college courses. So I'll take any questions.
I have a question, Mr. Volo, about the summer.
Yep.
I see there's some denials, and I get it. I'm just wondering if we offer something in the summer, or if we don't offer something in the summer, is it okay? So, or because we don't offer a lot of things in the summer, but is that?
Yeah, the summer term, there's no end around of, well, you don't offer it in summer school, therefore you have to approve everything. It's, we offer it, and these are students who, remember, this is all students who are still returning next year, so they're rising seniors or rising juniors. So they still have time to take it with us. So if students in Calculus A, B this year, they can take Calc BC next year. Or if they chose not to take AP Chemistry, well, they can. They're just choosing not to. So yeah, the summer school, we can't offer all those things in summer by any means. That's a great question, though.
Thanks for I love the additional data in the back, so I appreciate you adding that in. Thank you very much. I don't know if this question means as much in light of how few classes are actually taken, but I wonder if you see it, if you ever look for trends in terms of many students are asking for this particular course, and how does that inform your future course offerings?
It's a great question. As we go through our curriculum review process, those teams also try to look at student demand as well as demand that maybe certain career pathways might have and other things. So you'll notice there's a lot of students who want to take psychology beyond AP Psych or intro to psychology. And that's a great potential connection, maybe if we're talking about more educator, type courses, for example, because education pathways oftentimes have courses in psychology beyond just intro around human development or stages or those things. So that's a great, piece of information. Our curriculum reviews should use all the data we have, including student demand, what students are going into that can feed into that. And largely the biggest areas, again, I'd say are some of those social sciences. A lot of the one-off ones like television studies, some of those are really specialized based on the kid, or you can tell there's at least one student who's gonna be a mechanic, when he graduates, or they graduate, I should say. And when you look at that and that sort of thing, yes, there's one request with all those, but that's absolutely something that our course curriculum review processes look at all those things that kids are taking. They look at where the demand is. And while we can't necessarily offer everything that's there, we also can't necessarily offer it at the college level. We still can look at that, and that can inform, what we do going forward.
Please, Mrs. Witkowski.
I also want to thank you for including the information. In fact, I didn't see it till tonight because I didn't scroll far enough. Because it's just scroll and scroll and scroll with all these requests.
It's a long document, correct.
And I was just thinking, oh, here we go, all these courses. But I'm very excited about the additional information. And I guess students typically just pop open their catalog and start writing them down and submitting them, and then that's just the very first step.
Yeah,
As
that's.
you can see, it's difficult to bring this all the way to the end.
And they're, somewhat advised to do that as well. So, a student will submit a course request for Marquette, MSOE, UWM, and MATC maybe just to take Calculus 3, because they have it in their head they must take Calculus 3 because they're done with the math offerings we have, which is great. And they want to make sure they get it somewhere. So they submit 4 different applications. So they're likely to get it. And that's 4 different applications, obviously, for us to look at. So the students are kind of doing what we asked them to do. There's been a few who are very, very, very diligent to make sure they get something. Because again, like you'll notice a student signed up for, I think, maybe 12 different courses requested. They can't take all those. I mean, it's just an impossibility. But they requested all of them, certainly.
Is there if somebody asked for a course from the same course from UWM, MATC, Marquette, and MSOE, is there a difference in our cost from one university to the next? And do we encourage them to take the one from MATC versus the one from MSOE based on that cost?
And I don't have the exact numbers off the top of my head, but there is a limit in terms of percent of tuition that colleges or universities can charge us.
Okay.
So early college credit has a sort of given rate of what they can charge us compared to typical undergrad. Start College now has its own rates. And of those two, we're able to get, for early college credit, for example, we submit a form for reimbursement. So we say to the state of Wisconsin, from this college, we had this many courses, we paid this much in tuition, we should be getting at least whatever percent the state's able to fully fund then back based on those requests. So there can be some variance in there, but at the end of the day, largely what drives it will be what fits in the student's schedule versus, us saying, well, could you consider taking this one versus that one?
Thank you. Anybody else have any questions?
Mr. Miller, for a course like advanced reading and writing, it's an AP course for college, early college credit?
So in this case, that's beyond AP Lang or AP Lit. It's a different course in that sequence. So it's similar to, it's a communications type class or an English language arts class. But that's one of the things that's, part of what we have to do when we review it is I have to look at all the courses, go to the course catalogs, and then say, okay, like what is, AP Lang credited as at UWM? What is AP Lit credited as? And then look at that course number and then look at the course proposal and see that it is a significantly different course. So it's not, a stand-in for what we currently offer, but it's, again, another English class that colleges have. And again, some of the names you can see are pretty interesting. There's a ton of names out there. And if I'm thinking of that one specifically, I believe that also could be Spanish. I'd have to triple check, but I think that's Spanish specifically. It's not in the title, but I believe that's a Spanish course. And that student has done, I believe, the CAP course we have this year. So they want to take more Spanish and the next course in sequence.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right, any further questions for Mr. Volo? All right, I'm looking for a motion to approve the summer-fall 2022 early college credit and start college now request as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All right, motion's been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Less applause.
As much as you deserve. Superintendent hiring process, board focus group session, Ms. Dramers, School Executive Connect, Dr. Freitag and Dr. O'Mara, please.
Yeah, so good evening, everybody. We have Dr. O'Mara and Dr. Freitag here with us who are going to conduct a session with the board to kind of continue the process in the superintendent search about what the board is really looking for at this point in a candidate, so they can go out and hopefully find someone that fits that. So I'll pass it over to them.
I've been selected to lead the discussion, so I'll do that. But before I do that, I want to digress. The thing I miss most about being involved on a daily basis with schools is what we saw tonight, kids, and what the two of us saw today at the high school. I've done a lot of these searches in the last 10 years, and sometimes it's a challenge with high school students. I want to compliment the board, the district. The students we met with today were very open. They were very well versed in what's going on here, and quite frankly, provided us with exceptional input. So I would pass that along to the high school staff and to the district, because the students you're preparing obviously are well versed and interested in what's going on here. Kevin and I are putting together a profile. Now, how do we do it and what do we use it for? First of all, we're going to be talking to, today and tomorrow, a variety of groups. We try to do some parents. We try to do students, obviously. Tonight, the board. This afternoon, we met with your leadership team. And teachers or faculty members as well. What we're looking for are common themes. Themes that cut across the groups rather than are focused on an individual group. And the questions we use will be very familiar to you. They're the same questions that are on the survey. On the survey, you have forced choices. I've had, in the searches I've done, I've had some people call me, their phone number is there, and they'll say, you said 5, I'd like to make 8. You see, but we're forcing the individuals to pick 5. Okay, the 5 most important. If you look at those lists, all of them could be checked. Quite frankly, last night when my wife filled out the survey, because as many of you are aware, I still live here in Franklin, she asked me if she could make additional choices. Even though we've done this many times. And I had to admonish her and tell her she had to limit herself. So hopefully she didn't follow up her survey by doing some extra things. But at the end of the day, what we want to put together is a picture for you. You've got a puzzle. You lost a couple pieces. One of them you replaced tonight, Jim's position. But now you're going to lose another piece. And it's like doing a jigsaw puzzle. And I told the students that today. My wife does puzzles that are 1,000 pieces. I'm up to 25 now. And hope to expand to 50 by next year after COVID is over. But nonetheless, we want to find that piece for you. And the way we do that is build a profile. At the end of the day, when Kevin presents the profile, there isn't going to be any one candidate out there that will fit every one of those. The trick to it is you finding somebody you're comfortable with that you cover as many as possible, and then your hope is that person gets people to support them and fills in the spots that they may not be as strong in. So that's how we use the profile. How would you use the profile? Your interviews. Later on, when we get down the Kevin will do an interview workshop, and we'll talk a little bit about how you have to design your questions to align with that profile. And that's where it becomes valuable to you. We can do those two things. We can find that person who will fit that particular piece. And just as a quick update at the end, I'll ask the 4 questions, and Kevin's going to jot notes down, and we won't take anybody's name down. I told the students that today. I said, besides that, even though you have table tents by tomorrow, at my age, you probably wouldn't remember the names anyway, so therefore, you don't have to worry when you open and honest with us. What we're going to try to do is those questions at the end, then I'll open it up for questions from you if you have. One of the things that you may ask is, are you all recruiting? The answer to the question is yes. Okay, I've had contacts with a number of people who called me, and we talked about the district. I've called a couple of people, and we've talked to some of our consultants already. So the process has already started. When I talk to individuals right now, I say I don't have a profile, so I can't be specific at this point. But the fact of the matter is, once I get that, it'll become a public document. We'll return to those individuals so they can discuss specifics. All right, so let me go on with the questions, and then if we have some more dialogue at the end. I don't want to keep you here. Judy and Jim told me that I have until 12, so I told my wife if I was home by 10, she should go to bed, so you'll have to bear with me. The first thing we do when we sell, and these are the questions, quite frankly, that a couple of these questions are the ones they ask us. Most of these individuals have jobs, they're positions, they're successful at their positions. And they want to know, the first question they ask us, why would I want to come to Franklin? What are some of the great things that are going on in Franklin? What sets Franklin aside from corners? And why is this a district that I want to pursue? So I'm going to throw that out to you from the board's perspective. What are some of the great things that are happening that you want us to sell people?
Well, the board is great. The board is great.
Okay, you get a check mark for
Okay,
that. Yeah.
all right, that's okay.
That's a good one.
I usually do. I would say our academics are top-notch, our graduation rate is top-notch, our athletics are top-notch. I mean, our high school is the centerpiece of our community, and our community comes out to support our school district.
Yeah, I think that's something that's sort of unique about Franklin is that the school district does provide a centerpiece for the community. So I think that can't be overstated. And I think it's also reflected in the degree to which there's significant parent and community support, both for athletics, extracurriculars, and academics. And I would especially academically point to the strong engagement we have with our business community in supporting our high school and in manufacturing community and supporting our high school students especially.
Also, I think the community engagement, is very strong. In Franklin, there are a lot of parents who come to meetings, taking out this busy time of their schedule to give their input, which is kind of very unique because the community is including the parents and the students and the board, and I see a very strong presence of the parents and the community as such in the participation, which is very strong.
I was going to say, you saw tonight the beginnings of this academic achievement that we have, that, it's not just our high school students who are doing incredible things, it's our, all across all age spectrums in the district. And I think that goes also to our staff. I think that we have really dedicated, caring staff who truly care about their students and really go that extra mile any chance they get to really help our students succeed.
We're financially stable, we have good facilities, and I think we're always trying to improve.
I think we're also a district that continues to grow. Our enrollment has stayed steady or grown, which I think is helps with our financial stability going forward, and the community is going to continue to grow as we've talked about in recent meetings.
And also, I think one of the things which I'm very proud of, Franklin as a school district, is we don't hesitate to take tough decisions when it needs to. Like, for example, when the COVID came in, ours was the only district which took in the whole nearby neighboring district to be in person at that time, as compared to all the other districts which were going virtual. So it was a very bold decision, and so we don't shy away from taking, bold decisions.
Thank you very much.
I think that the strength of the systems and processes and people in place in this building in which the new administrator would be working can't be overstated. It's a very professionally run organization, and they would be entering a culture of respect and professionalism.
Let me shift gears. If you, and I'm doing it, we can come back, okay? I'm doing it for the sake of time, because really you probably don't want to see it. Challenges. Every district has challenges. As you look ahead as board members, what are some of the challenges that individual is going to have to confront, whether they want to or not?
I think that although Franklin is a growing district, that can also be considered a challenge as well, because we're gonna need someone who's got referendum experiences, because eventually we are going to run out of space in our schools. So we're gonna need someone who's got that experience and who's willing to step up to that spokesmanship role and the face of the district role and those kinds of things.
Future planning is really important with that. We've done a good job of putting together a coherence plan, adding to the coherence plan, but that's not really a nuts and bolts thing. Nuts and bolts thing being facilities and planning for 10 years from now, and we've got some of that in place, and I think we need to grow on that.
I don't know how much this is unique to Franklin, but I think there is a significant teacher retention, recruitment, and morale issue statewide, if not nationwide, and Franklin isn't immune to that. So I think creating a culture that's attractive to teachers on multiple levels is going to be important.
Last thing, if I can just add on to that, the pandemic hasn't helped us. So, I've done 3 other districts in the last year and a half, and what you just said came up in every one of them. Because whether we like it or not, put some pressure on us and on our families and on our schools.
And along with the teacher thing, which might be a more statewide thing, not necessarily Franklin, would be the fiscal cliff we hear about, what's going on at the state level in terms of future finances and lack of consistent increases.
I think there's going to be some curricular challenges coming up in terms of what we're able to offer, especially at the high school level, in respect to the teacher issue that I mentioned. So, so ability to oversee curricular change, which I guess should go without saying, but.
I also think it is, well, I do agree with you that we have well-run operations here at the district office, but there's a lot of new faces around here.
Yep.
So there's new staff. There's not a lot of history for the person coming in to rely on, which can be good and bad.
And with losing 2 people, obviously, you lose some of the history.
Bless you.
We
have really good manners. We always say bless you when people say.
And I said thank you.
Nice.
That's 2 check marks. That's
Let me, and again, we can come back to this as well. As you will do, quite frankly, this summer, you're going to sit down with this new person, and they're going to have to establish some priorities. They're going to agree to those priorities with you. From the perspective of the board, that first year, what do you see as the 2 or 3 top priorities that person needs to focus in on?
I think able to develop a good bridge between the administration and also the staff. because that's where, if you want to improve the efficiency, the teacher retention, be able to work with the staff at the same time administration, because you have, your administrator, the superintendent, but at the same time, it's kind of, it's a.
Would it be fair if I paraphrase that as relationships?
That was the word I was going to use.
Relationships with the various stakeholders, would that be fair? Okay. Thank you.
I was going to say relationships, and not just, administration and staff, but with parents and community members as well. Just really kind of opening up those doors, those avenues of communication, and really building relationships so that we can build through to the future.
I think that we were talking before about a lot of new people, and by the time the new superintendent's seated, there's going to be one person on the administrative side at this table that was here 1 year ago. And so I think it's important to build those relationships really with the district office, and build those relationships with the principals and through the teachers and that sort of thing. I think that's leadership is really, really important.
And to me, part of that is also sort of establishing what your culture is going to be, establishing the norms and the culture for the people you work with every day and the people you may not see every day, but that are carrying out your mission. So, I mean, really, what's the priority? Keep the district running, keep everything operating, but really the soft priority is establish that foundation.
Although I think at the same time, we have our values and our mission and our coherence plan is set. I don't think we want to be veering off too much or expect them to start over with a clean slate either. I don't know, I'm asking that.
No, those are two different things.
Okay.
Yeah.
I agree with you, Linda, but I don't think that's what we're.
Okay.
The fourth question on there is every person brings with them some personal and professional characteristics. And they have personal and professional strengths. From the board's perspective, the individual that eventually succeeds in getting into this position, there's some of those characteristics they're going to have to have. They have to, if they're going to have any chance at success.
Transparency.
Very good.
I think open-mindedness.
I would say confidence. Make a decision, stand by that decision.
How can it be confidence tempered with humility?
Sure.
Okay.
I'll give you humility.
All right. Okay.
In other words, not a real large ego.
Modest.
I think communication skills are important, speaking and writing, and willing to keep that going.
And depending, irregardless of what group they're talking to, I'm assuming you want the same message. Consistency. Am I putting words in your mouth?
No, I would agree. I would expect that. Transparency or consistency.
They have to trust their staff and let them do their jobs.
Excellent. Very well said. All right. Let's, and like I said, we got, is there something I didn't ask? Is there something that you want to tell us as consultants that we really need to put up here as we're talking to those individuals that I didn't ask? When you get, and I'll stop. When you get the profile, and that was a courtesy, and unfortunately, the night you get the profile, I'm not going to be here. Okay, my son's getting married.
Well, congratulations.
And so on Friday, I'll take my computer with me and I'll be working on the road. But the fact of the matter is I'm going to head south because he wants this wedding to be kind of on the beach. And so we have a house we're going to hit, and my wife and I are going to go down to the set. And so unfortunately, I won't be able to be with you on the 23rd because the 22nd is the day of the wedding. And I have a sneaky suspicion after it's over with, I may have to rearrange a few things. So I don't get into trouble. But when you get that profile, what I would tell you is you're going to get a lot of data, okay? And people have a tendency to focus on the and that's nice. But when you discuss it with Kevin, that's probably not the part you want to discuss, okay? Those are perceptions. They're things that cut across the groups. And, you know, you might say to yourself, sitting at the table reading it, well, this isn't us. The fact of the matter is the person who said it, or the groups that said it, believe it. For them, perception is reality, okay? And we can't change that. The most important part, from my perspective, and I've done this the 22nd time I've done this, the most important part of the attributes, you seven and Kevin got to reach consensus on those attributes, because that's what we're going to sell, that's what you're going to sell, and the expectation, you will share those with the community, but the expectation will be, when you find this person, you're going to use those to move yourself.
That's your lens.
Yeah, that's your lens. Anything else? We'll use a lot of time.
10 minutes from now or tomorrow, whatever, if something comes to mind that we forgot to ask or you forgot to mention, reach out to Jerry or me, and we'll make sure that it's noted. We want to make sure that your voices are heard.
On the road as well. I'll conclude my comments, and then if you have anything or any questions to ask us, so feel free to do so. By thanking the board and the district, I have two youngsters through school here, okay? Not recently, but a while back. One of them is a vice president at Robert W. Baird. The other one is a financial analyst for Johnson Outdoor. They wouldn't be there if it weren't for the teachers at Franklin High School who encouraged them to move into those areas. And both of them are extremely successful because of folks like you. So I thank you for your time tonight, for giving me a little time to talk with you.
I also want to publicly recognize Laura, who's been a great person, who doesn't mind taking calls at 10 o'clock at night or 7 in the morning when I have questions to ask about schedules and meetings and rooms and addresses, which I have to write down several times for some reason. So thank you, Laura, for your assistance arranging for all these groups to be met with. And as Jerry has said, this is a great place. You have a lot to be proud of. We have a big role to play in helping you find your next leader, but we're off to a great start. So thank you for your time and your consideration.
Thank you. Does anybody have further questions for School Exec Connect? Some of you out there may know Dr. Freitag was the superintendent at Franklin for several years. So he's told me that he's a special place in his heart for this district, which is one of the reasons that we're using you gentlemen. But we appreciate your time.
And the last two people from my team, at least here at the St. John's, are leaving this year. So
Oh my goodness.
My connection to you will be significantly less.
Thank you for your time and enjoy the rest of your evening. We'll be in touch. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll wait for Dr. Miller to return.
Dr. Mills, are you one of the last connections?
I am.
How strange, huh?
You guys can move up
Yes.
if you
This
want.
really feels like a torch passing ceremony
You
or
don't
something.
have to. You guys can move up if you want. You don't have to be in the back.
Oh,
It's
please
up
don't
to you.
start crying.
No, it'll be fine.
Oh, we've got all the principals. Thank you all for coming in tonight.
Does it ever work when somebody said move up and they did?
Yeah.
Educators are good at following directions.
It's true.
All right, item C, coherence plan update. Dr. Mo, please.
Thank you. So first off, you probably saw that we have And in fact, Laura just said it's a principal party. That's what we said. And I asked them all to move up because they will be participating in this. So if you have questions about, I know you got a report ahead of time with the specific building improvement plans, there will be a chance at the end for you to ask questions specific to buildings, just if you want to hold that thought. So just reminding you, we always like to set from the top, which everything is in our mission and vision and core values when we think coherence plan. And we're trying hard to make sure staff all the way throughout the organization, all the way down to teachers and classrooms and kids realize that. And I think we're getting closer as we move forward. So if you think about the 3 buckets, remember these were things that carried over from the last coherence plan, they're still here. Better place to learn, better place to work, and part of a better community. So those stayed even from the first coherence plan to this, and I think that's important because we think about our tactics and our work still in those 3 buckets. I know those 3 phrases come up for me every day. The metrics that I'm going to update you on are from these 5 areas. If we're talking about levels, just like last time, student achievement and growth, closing gaps, employee engagement, family and community engagement, and fiscal stewardship. So those are unchanging as well. That's what drives all of our work. Our strategy areas is when we get closer down into building work. So we do some of that at the district, but the tactics and the actual what's happening comes in that work, and those will be updated next year. So just to kind of give you an action, we're already doing some work on what are those actual tactics going to be. So the areas won't change, but we're going to talk about some specific actions that have to come next year. So we are talking about that. So I think Mr. Sprague asked me when I walked in, are there any new squares that are colored? Not a whole lot. So one thing you'll notice is that these metrics are set up for student achievement and growth largely to update in the spring. So ACT happened yesterday. So we have a new metric there, but no results yet. Forward will happen shortly after spring break. So we'll have new metrics there by the next time that I come in June. You'll see in the updates from the principals that there are things that they watch at their building level that kind of inform those larger metrics, but this is the exact same as when I was here in December. So not that anything's happening, but none of these data sources are new. They will be in June when I come back. Between December and now, I tried to pick out the larger buckets of work that we've been working on. So we have been talking a lot during leadership team about how can we shift our focus to doing a better job with universal tier 1 instruction. So how can we make sure more kids get it the first time through? Because that's a much more efficient way to move learners than having to try to catch up with intervention. Not that intervention is bad, but we're more efficient if we do a better job the first time. So we've started shifting our focus into how we can make that better. We also have teams of the individuals you'll see out in the audience that are doing what we call calibration or instructional rounds, meaning someone high schoolish, someone middle schoolish, and someone elementary schoolish are a team, and they travel to each other's buildings and look at practice and talk about it. A new addition to that we are working on is they are watching teams performing in each other's buildings. So not just a teacher teaching math in the classroom, but how might the 3rd grade PLC meet and plan, or the 3rd grade team of teachers? So that's a newer way that we are looking at trying to collaborate. Like everyone says, oh, let's have better teams, but that's hard. How do we give feedback? How do we grow teams? So that was a new piece of the calibration that the principals are just starting. Closing gaps, again, no new metrics here, but what you will see, starting on page 5 in that report, is remember we had a discussion last time that we're all in the green here. Mr. Sprague, I remember we had the discussion, but what is that really saying? And you can see based on those graphs, what those green squares are showing is that the distance between the 2 lines got smaller. But you can see, so there's an ELA and math gap in there for students with IEPs. Starting on page 6, there's an ELA and math gap for students based on socioeconomic status, and then EL status. So you can see that I'm not sure I would look in those graphs and feel like we were really in the green, right? We still have work to do there. So the gap is closing, but it's not always closing in the way that we want. So I know that we had discussed that back and forth. So for instance, if you look on that first line here, you can see for 2021, the distance between students without disabilities and students with disabilities is 44 points. That's that first number. So that would translate to that first graph. The distance between the two dots on the line is 44 points. That's the gap that we're tracking. And the goal would be to narrow that by 3 points each year. That's what we're hoping to do when we look at the new data that I'll have for you in June. So hopefully that better answers that. I know we discussed too updating next year. I find it difficult to have ELA and math on one line. On this chart, it would be easier if it was sectioned, so we've talked about some logistics, but to better display in my mind what we're looking at in terms of gaps would be to look at those graphs, which were added for you this time. So I'm just going to pause there to make sure that distinction makes sense. It's kind of a deeper dive into the gap metric. No new data, but maybe a different way to look at it.
I mean, what I took from those graphs was that we're closing the gap in the wrong, by lowering the, yes.
Correct. So based on the metric, we're in the green because the distance got smaller, but we would rather the distance get smaller by the top line moving up.
The bottom line moving up.
Excuse me, the bottom line moving up. Yes, thank you.
Or both moving up.
Yeah,
Or both moving up.
Just one moving up more.
I do find the graphs helpful, thank you.
I agree.
So since we last met in December, the leaders here in the district have been working hard on doing some root cause work for students with IEPs. So for instance, when we look at the gap between those two dots, why do we think that's happening and what can we as adults in the system do different to close that gap? They've looked at a lot of data. They're committing to some individual actions, some group actions, like how can we really think? Everybody says, oh yeah, we should do better, but let's be real precise about what we are going to commit to do better. So those conversations are happening. What, excuse me, this team comes up with in terms of root cause around that will drive what our tactics are for next year's annual scorecard. So you'll kind of see that transfer to here's why we think this is happening and here's what we're going to commit to in terms of a strategy for next year. So we should be, I don't want to say totally done, but done enough to share that with you in June in terms of what the draft of that scorecard for next year might look like. As that can't promise, I always say forward, we should have the data, but that data is notoriously slow to come in. I'm not sure if that would change our work a real lot, but I'd rather underpromise and overdeliver, right, than having. But I think we'll get an idea, right? We don't have to see the data again to know the gap is there, right? We know that's coming, so what is the work we're going to commit to? And then next year, per the coherence plan, we'll kind of repeat the same process for students learning English and students from low-income household, those other two gap areas. Why is that happening? Why do we think that's happening, and what adult actions can we take to make that better? We do have a new square colored in this section. It's the one change that we made from last time. So you can see last time we were waiting for the data to come in around staff retention rate. So you'll see that the goal or the target for green was to be above 85%. And right now we are at 90.1%. So you can see the trend data in that prior year column, and then the target right now, based on our most current information, is green. So that is updated. Since that's new information, again, I'll pause. If you have questions, I'll likely ask Laura to weigh in if you have specific questions, but that is a new piece of data that you did not have in December.
So was that data that we didn't have at all? Or is that's new for this?
It's just new for this specific report because it just took a little bit of time to dive into the data to be able to make that calculation.
Ms. Summers, when is the date by which staff have to inform you if they're not returning?
It depends. So retirements were earlier, and then contracts technically by Wisconsin state statute don't have to be returned until June 15th, I believe, is the final date.
So is this current 90%, 90.1% is based on last year's retention into this year.
Yes.
Ah, okay, thanks.
Yes, sorry.
Correct. I could have said that much. Thank you.
It's very similar to the last 3 years.
So working around employee engagement, like I said, we updated that metric, just making sure we have that, continue to run that each year. We are having a lot of discussions about attracting and retaining staff. I've heard it already brought up several times in the course of different presentations this evening. I heard something on the radio just about nationwide, the number of teachers leaving the profession. We all hear that. So I would say that comes up daily in our discussions in some way, shape, or form, that we're all going to be facing this to be continued, but it's definitely on the radar. When we talk about building high-performing teams, we talk about that the research says that a teacher or a group of teachers or a staff member on a team that functions well and has a high degree of efficacy or a high degree of, I know that I'm better when I work with this group of people, makes teachers stay. So that's something specifically we're looking at. How do you grow those teams so I feel good? I know that I can make a change by myself, but I know I can even make a greater change with my colleagues, and that feels good and makes me want to come back. So there's a rubric around that and some research that we're using that the principals and their school improvement teams are using. That's new work this year that we've leaned into a little bit more since December. We also have, I'm sure you guys are aware, we talk about pulse surveys. So we have the full employee engagement survey, but then twice a year we do shorter pulse surveys. And that data goes directly to principals for them to use more in a formative way for their specific buildings. So student pulse survey went out this week. An employee engagement pulse survey or short survey goes out next week. So again, remember I was new when I picked the dates. Like I probably didn't pick the best dates because we're close to having that data, but just not quite for this meeting. So those pulses go out, the principals look at them, they share them with staff. I heard Ms. Larson talk about transparency. So like, here's what we're saying, here's what we're working on. It kind of weaves in with the rounding conversations that we have with staff, which is another part of employee engagement and just connecting. And I really feel like the building leaders and principals have done an excellent job at taking those rounding conversations seriously and meaningfully and making them work.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes.
When you were talking about high-performing teams, it just got me thinking about how as the student population shifts, that there's inevitable shifting of teachers between schools. I'm wondering if you're going to be taking into account sort of this team really needs that person. Do you see what I'm saying? How will that goal inform your decisions about moving teachers between schools? Will it?
I'm going to say I don't know in the most respectful way. I mean, it's one of probably 8 to 10 things that popped in my head that goes into that decision. To be honest with you, when you said that, I had all these other things that popped into my head for making that decision. I would definitely not say it's the only thing considered, but a thing considered. I would say I don't know. Maybe that wasn't the best HR answer. A thing.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it's something that's considered, but I think that the, whoever is doing the hiring takes into consideration, I think, cultural fit and the desire to grow the program and the way that they interact with students. So there's so many elements. And I'm sure that how they function as a part of that team is a part of that decision.
That was kind of a tricky question, sorry.
Oh, that's a fair question. I mean, if you're going to do the work and gather the data, it has to affect decision-making somewhere, and that's a likely place it might land.
I have to interject because I've worked with the administrators for a number of years staffing our schools, and they collaborate around the teams they have and what's needed, and sometimes they make conscious decisions, particularly at the elementary level, to move teachers from one building to another just to enhance a team because of the strengths, so they talk about teams when they're talking about placement of new staff and requests that a teacher might make to move to a different building. So they do focus on the teams. We're just getting better at understanding what a good team looks like. Thank you.
So family and community engagement, again, no new data here, but we do have some updates. So since the last time we met, we've done several more rounds of customer service training, which is part of a really big part of that goal. You can see, hopefully by the next time we come, that training will be done, and we will have had a chance to work with the department leaders, so food service, community, and rec, on setting goals to tie to this plan around that customer service training. So we're moving through that. So 79 employees, you can see the list there, were trained in fall, which we may have reported. I don't think I reported the number in December, but we talked about it. But since then, we had another group go through. Spring is loosely meaning now, so the next 2 PD days finishing up, we started already, would be 70 employees. So I know I went with the group of administrators. We've already had 1 session with our trainer. And by all accounts, I know I wrote this in your report, it's very good. People like the trainer, I think Jim shared with you, comes from a school background. So it's like customer service training in the context and lens of schools, which I think people have found valuable. And fiscal stewardship, we will be updating in June as well, so nothing new there to share. So at a later time, and maybe even at the discussion, I definitely want input from all of you on how do we get the rhythm of these updates with not having a lot of information to share. Is there a different way we want to do the rhythm? We can talk about, or if you want to reach out to me separately, but we can talk about that for next year as we try to figure out a rhythm. So I apologize that I don't have more boxes to change the color, but here's the things that have been going on since then. But we do have a lot to report when we talk about principals and the work that principals and leadership teams and school improvement teams have done in their buildings. So you'll see in your report, you have those same gold boxes with their goals, but there's a new line of boxes added underneath. So the principals did, and their leadership teams, school improvement teams, did each look at their goals and add data where data could be added. So some people's goals were based on MAP scores. We have had some new MAPS data. That's just not a metric that we use for the big coherence plan. So you can page through that, as I'm sure you already have, that there have been some smaller pieces of data updates. The other activity that we've done that I feel has been very valuable, I'm not sure if the principals would say, but it's been interesting to work through as we explored this concept of elevator speeches. So everybody wants their school to get better. Everybody wants to close the gaps. Everybody wants to improve student achievement, right? Everybody wants to do things to support our coherence plan, of course. But if you were really asked to say, what are you doing at your school that's going to have the biggest impact? If I asked you that right now, mid-year, how would you answer that? And how would that most impactful thing make your school look different by the end of the year? So that's the activity that the principals did. That's what they have to share with you. I'm just going to kind of have them go in order as we explore this new way of, if you're comfortable, we could just hear from all of them and then ask questions at the end, or would you be more comfortable stopping after each one?
I think it would be better if they all went and then we
Okay.
could ask questions.
Is that?
That worked, yeah, that's great.
Okay.
Could we pretend we're in an elevator?
I don't.
The box up there, we all stand in there.
All right, Ben Franklin.
Yeah, it's a very crowded elevator, so. I've been Mary Shannon, Ben Franklin. Last time I forgot to record that for them. So at Ben Franklin, we have collaborated with the literacy system specialist for our professional development planning, which has really led to what we call inclusive coaching. So the literacy system specialist would coach the cross-categorical teacher alongside the classroom teacher to improve their practice within the classroom. And so at the end of the year, we would expect that all of our students, especially those that are in our growth group, would have improved access and engagement in literacy.
All right, Shauna LaPlante, principal at Countrydale. We've really been working hard to create a stronger, inclusive, and equity-focused culture. A lot of our learning has focused on small group instruction for our teachers that obviously trickles right down into the classroom, and really targeting like what that growth can look like for our teachers and how that's going to impact our students. And then the other big part of our learning as a staff is thinking about how we can just build that student independence. And so then, of course, at the end of the year, we expect an increase in both math and literacy scores, as well as a reduction in the achievement gap for students in any of our marginalized groups.
Alejandra Ovalle-Krolik, principal at Pleasant View. At Pleasant View, we are developing expert learners by building student self-efficacy. So it's really around orientation, so in other words, teacher clarity, activation, how are students overcoming obstacles when they feel stuck, and collaboration, how are they working collectively together in their learning to empower them to become more independent. At the end of the year, we expect that all learners will have increased engagement as well as an increase in literacy scores.
Chad Nelson, principal at Robinwood Elementary. We're building the capacity on high leverage practices that support student engagement in inclusive classrooms, and we're doing that through embedded professional learning that occurs in the classrooms with the students, both with math system specialists alongside student service system specialists, coaching and modeling different practices for our teachers and problem solving with our teams. So at the end of the year, our staff will grow in their ability to utilize a variety of strategies to meet student needs, leading to high growth for all our students in math and literacy.
Bridget Mowbray, Southwood Glen principal. At Southwood Glen, our team has worked to identify and address barriers to Tier 1 instruction in the area of literacy. That has led to collaborative work with our literacy system specialists as well as the student services system specialists in PD, in both the area of planning and instruction. And at the end of the year, we expect that all students will have improved achievement and growth in the area of literacy.
Jake Mizia, principal at Forest Park. And at Forest Park, we are increasing our capacity to implement high leverage instructional practices that support strong peer relationships and learning through ongoing professional learning that is supported by our math, literacy, and student service system specialists. And at the end of the year, our staff will routinely utilize anchor strategies to support academic growth and social and emotional development.
Mike Volo, high school principal. At Franklin High School, we are and will be collaborating in increasingly high-performing teams through things like professional learning communities and co-planning teams to take intentional action collectively and individually to ensure that we know our students have learned, apply the correct strategies at the correct time for the correct students, and get better at evidence-based teaching and learning. As a result, at the end of the year, we expect that our students learn at high levels and become college, career, and life ready. And that's an and, not an or. It's not college or career or life. It's all an and. Thank you.
So any questions you have for our principals at this time?
I think I heard a couple of you mention student independence is important. Why is that important, or what makes that so important?
Yeah, I'd be happy to talk a little bit about that. I think at the end of the day, I mean, even at the elementary level, or if you're in middle school or you're in high school, we want our kids to be able to come to school and figure out what it is that they need to do to be successful in that day, because we're not always going to be there for them. So I think it really is up to the adults to help kids figure out how to do that. So we just work as a staff, really. Sometimes it's even about like building a belief system in our students and in each other, so that they believe and they have that self-efficacy that they can do great things. So
Great. I also heard about barriers in Tier 1. What kind of barriers? Can you just name examples?
Right, so in Tier 1 instruction in a classroom and a teacher is delivering instruction, there might be one way that it's happening. For example, if it's a really text-rich piece, it might be hard for all students to be able to access that. So being able to think of ways that we're ensuring that all students can read the problem or have the problem read to them, or have a highlighter and a smaller passage with something, so that we're making sure that when the teacher is delivering that instruction to the whole group, that there isn't something getting in the way of that student receiving the instruction.
And one other thing was anchor strategies. I'm not familiar with that. What is example?
An example of anchor strategy. So those would be strategies that you would routinely see given class, any given time. So things that we would expect that teachers would be utilizing routinely would be something like teacher clarity, where the kid has a clear understanding of what they're learning that day, and then possible ways that they could measure their progress as they were going along. So to build off what Sean is saying, that's really that independence part. So if we've developed students to become expert learners, they not only know what they're learning, they know how to measure their progress, but then they also know where they're going next. So they know why they're learning it. So an anchor strategy could be something like teacher clarity.
I have to say, I saw a lot of that at the high school when I was visiting. They're very clear on today we're learning this, everywhere you go. And I guess my last one would be what you mentioned at the beginning of the report about root causes of the gap. And you've already kind of investigated that for IEPs. Can you share maybe an example of what you've learned?
Yeah, I can. I'll share an example that I talked with Bridget about. We were talking about oftentimes with a young student who might be learning English, it's hard to tease out what might be a language issue as you're helping that student and what could possibly be, I don't want to say could possibly be a disability, but you eventually get to that point. So how do you figure out the right intervention? So we were talking about what is our approach to that? Do we think about, we as adults think about a student learning English in a different way than we would think about any student? And that could be in a good way, but is the root cause how the adults view certain kids? And that might not be an intentional way, but, or do we have systems that say if you're receiving one intervention, you don't get this intervention? We talked about for if you're a family that doesn't speak English and you come into the main office and there's no way for you to interact with the office staff, for instance, we've automatically maybe made a barrier, right? And that we can't help that. There's a lot, Christina's always has people who can translate and we adjust, but how are we trying to prevent that from happening in all those ways? Something that we want to investigate, for instance, is we want to do a parent survey and know who's responding. So we've done parent surveys in the past, but we don't know if the voices of parents who are above the poverty line are louder in that response than voices of parents who might get free or reduced lunch in their household. We don't have that disaggregated to know who makes up our parent group that's responding. So how do we start to pick apart those things so that we can react appropriately? And I'll ask anyone else to join in. So have you ever heard of the 5 whys? So we say students with IEPs aren't doing as well in math. And you say, why? Because they are more apt to be truant from school. Why? So you ask why 5 times. That's one way until you drill down to what is really going on and what can we have an effect over. That was not a very good example, but some of the things we have found is there some implicit bias going on? Do we have systems? Do we need to do a better job transitioning kids so those transition years always pop up from 5th to 6th and 8th to 9th? That's a very typical root cause you see in lots of schools, that there's a dip on those years. So if we would root cause that and decide that those dips are huge, bigger for some kids than others, Christina's already led work. Okay, how are we going to be proactive when students with IEPs move from 5th grade to 6th grade so we can make that dip? The root cause is that we are not doing the things we need to do to transition. So how are we going to be proactive, transition in a better way, and hopefully get better results?
Thank you. And we'll see more of those in the next plan that you bring to us.
And I would just add, Ms. Witkowski, that it's heavily grounded in our data. Like that is the absolute starting point of doing any kind of analysis of what a root cause would be for a problem. Lots of data, all sliced in different ways. Spend a lot of time, and I knew you thought that would be good.
Dr. Moore?
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, because it's a national problem, it's a state problem, and also a district problem where I've always seen that the schools lag behind in literacy, as compared to math. If you see math schools always good literacy, and always puzzle me why, and studies have also shown that most of the literacy takes from K to 8th grade, and students who have strong literacy up in 8th grade, and then they maintain that in the high school, as compared to math. In math, 9th and 10th still they learn stuff, and then improve on their stuff. So taking into consideration Franklin is becoming a more diverse, city and population, and some of the parents don't have, for example, English as the first, language, and then are we taking into consideration to achieving these high standards, closing the gaps, also taking into consideration the changing demographic? And I know this is not a small issue because this is, improving literacy is difficult, but how do we get there, take into consideration all the challenges which we have, the changing demographic, it's a chronic problem, you somehow have to kind of, improve that, I'm sorry, it's a kind of, it's
I am. I'm trying to think of the best way to answer, and also would like our other directors to answer too. That's why I'm pausing. I want to say yes, yes, yes to everything you said. The challenge, right? Every time, and quite frankly, changing demographics have challenged a lot of people. It is wonderful because it brings all these different things into the classroom, but I use the analogy of teachers in some ways have to prepare 24 individual meals for 24 students who all need something different at one point in time. And how do you do that efficiently? That, when you think about, and that's hard for teachers to do something different for every student. So how do we get more efficient at that?
I think in terms of literacy, that's a big part of our focus, and especially moving into next year in the spring, and that focus on Tier 1 instruction is really looking at learner variability. And so part of learner variability is the different demographics and recognizing that students learn in different ways and they have different levels of readiness, and the way in which students acquire language and interact with literacy, right, looks different. And so when we're focusing on growing our Tier 1 instruction, we're looking at multiple means of action and expression and representation so that students can interact with books in different ways. And so how they acquire language, are we looking at the balance in which we are talking to students versus them looking at pictures, using manipulatives, just how they're interacting with books, with literature, with writing in different ways, and how they're showing us that they're learning. And so there's a number of different strategies in which we'll explore to grow our Tier 1 instruction, but a big part of that too is students learning together. And there's literature circles or Socratic circles, partner reading, different ways for just students to interact in the learning. So the more we're looking to also diversify our classroom libraries so that students have more opportunities to interact with books that are depicting scenarios and characters that are both alike themselves, where they can see themselves in the books, but also different than themselves, growing an appreciation for diversity. And so I think it's just really growing our understanding of the science of reading, how students learn to read, and then, broadening, I guess, the strategies in which we are teaching reading and interacting with reading. And coaching, too, is a huge part and an influence on teachers' instructional strategies and how students learn in the classroom. And so also examining our coaching strategies with a continued focus on our resource, which is units of study, but also the how students are learning, and really just, I think, growing our coaching practice as well. Just a few means.
That was a great response, and from someone who's been in the district a really long time, the diversity has only made us better. I mean, it really has. We're a better school district, and we're a more diverse school district. So we're figuring it out.
I think it also goes to your, the student has to be independent. That's how they can self-serve, kind of. To your point, how does this teacher address all those needs? Well, the student can raise their hand and ask what they need to, I guess, is important. Just connecting for dots here, sorry.
Self-serve was a perfect analogy to the individual meals.
I
just wanted to say that I appreciated this format. I appreciate you all being here. It's like the Avengers or something. And I like the elevator speech approach, and I would also just say that by using that template for the liaison meetings, what Mrs. Shannon shared there and what she shared in her elevator speech is exactly what we've been covering. So I think that this approach for me works. So good job.
There is a slide there, so that liaison, if you have specific questions, when you follow up with your building principal, please do, and they may follow up with you, so that conversation doesn't have to end here. I think by all accounts, that's worked well. I know the principals usually feel really good after they've had a visit and like, it went well, and I showed this or I showed that, and that's authentically, that it feels good to share practice when it's going well. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dr. Moe. Thank you, principals. Anybody have further questions?
I'm thinking they should be some kind of uniform.
All right, ESSER 3 update and feedback. Mr. Milzer and Dr. Miller, please wait until. Dies down a moment.
They're going to their
party.
Avenger
Party
corner.
Chad
Their
Casper's
hideout.
a big Avenger guy. If you've ever been in his office,
I don't
he's
really
got the big
know.
posters. You would love that analogy.
All right, tonight we have the ESSER 3 overview. Starting with what is ESSER 3, we get used to all these acronyms. It is the Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund. It's the third one, authorized by the American Rescue Plan Act, and it provides funding to prevent, prepare for, and respond to COVID-19. The process to qualify for funds, we had to produce a safe return to in-person instruction and continuity of services plan. That was the information that we shared with the board in August and then created that plan. It's on our website now. We also had to solicit opinions from stakeholders, and we did the stakeholder survey recently.
And I can just share a bit about that. So we did cast the net with the survey, and we had 296 responses. 214 came from parents, 71 from staff, and then 11 students responded to our survey. So there was just the one question, basically, was, you know, what are your ideas for how we can utilize the ESSER 3 funds? So it was a really broad question. I read through everything again this evening before the meeting, and just to share with you the theme that came out of that was from the parent, staff, and student, predominant theme was mental health. That was something that was most frequently spoken to, along with academic support. But it was just very clear to me that there are some concerns about the mental health of our students. The academic support kind of pointed in the direction of summer school and student learning support and some pieces of technology. So those were the general themes that came out of the feedback that we got on that survey. And if anyone would like to read it, I certainly can provide you the 296 open-ended responses to read if you'd like. So with that in mind, we have kind of put this plan together. So I'll turn it back to you, Mr. Milzer.
All right. Given all that information, then we need to fill out an application with the Department of Public Instruction. Application seems easy. This is a painful process on this one. A lot of information, all good things, but we have to give them a lot of information, definitely about what we plan to spend the funds on, and then they take time to review that, let us know if everything we're thinking qualifies as they see it, and then we would move forward.
So Jim, can you just summarize like how much we're talking? I know you told us, but I don't remember. And when do we have to spend it? What's the time.
Do you mean dollar amount?
Yeah.
If you could wait a slide or two.
Oh, okay, I just thought.
We'll get to that.
Yeah, how much and when do we have to spend it? That's all I.
I'll start with that next time.
Okay, thanks.
So of the money we receive, 20% has to be used for evidence-based improvement strategies, which is part of the application that we're filling out. The timeline, our grant performance period is March 13th, 2020 to September 30th, 2024. So the expenditures are in that period of time, and our initial application is due March 11th. There's two different buckets, if you will, of funding. The 90% formula allocation is the money that the federal government indicated needed to go directly to school districts. In that, we're receiving $2.2 million, and that's the amount that we're talking about now and what we would do with that funding. The other piece of it is a 10% allocation that went to the state, and the state could decide how they wanted to use it. And in this case, they're using about half of it to give back to school districts to further their plans. We're waiting for a federal review of the state plan. The original state plan submitted was what Joint Finance wanted, was giving money to school districts that were in person most often in the 2020-21 school year. And the federal government said, no, that's not what we want you to spend it on. Go back and try again. So they came up with a new plan that turns that around and puts a minimum per student amount that districts should get. And they don't have numbers out there, but I've estimated. But to give you a sense of how this has changed, not so much in our favor. In the original one, based on how much time we spent in school, since we were in school right from the beginning, I had calculated that we would have gotten $2.46 million additional for that. If it went all the way back to a Title I allocation, our amount could have been as low as $60,000. But I'm estimating now, based on what I saw, if the federal government approves that, we would get about $400,000. You wouldn't think that the state budget is involved in this, but it is.
Oh, boy.
All of these funds are supposed to help school districts with the COVID costs and recovering from COVID and moving forward. But the state budget, which should be providing the school district with additional funds each year to educate students, really had almost no new expendable funding for schools for 2 years, from 2021 to 23. And essentially, the legislators told school districts to use our one-time federal funding to stay afloat over this period of time, and then they would look at doing something, but not even committing to anything there. So that's what makes it very difficult in Wisconsin, definitely, for school districts, is even districts that received a fair amount of money from this, they're not sure what they're going to get after this, and they have to keep things going. They certainly don't want to add a lot of things and then have to cut all of that and more once they get done. So that's kind of the backdrop to this. And then what expenses are we looking to fund? Mental health support, literacy and math support for students, summer school, COVID-related transportation costs, and laptops for teachers. The mental health support was very high in the survey. Literacy and math support, obviously good for students for their learning. Summer school provides additional education for them that they can take advantage of. And we had extra COVID-related transportation costs from disinfecting the buses several times a day to paying the contractor when we weren't even using them in order to qualify by the federal guidelines that you had to pay all your employees and contractors as much as practicable. And then laptops for teachers so that they're ready to go with the technology and could teach from home, could teach from school.
How many of these, or which of these are things that you're planning new? It's like some of them are sort of retroactive costs. Like,
summer school, we could go additional years on summer school.
Okay.
I think that could go into the future, and that qualifies as evidence-based
Okay.
strategy. Literacy and math could also qualify for that. Mental health support will be new
Okay.
Going forward. So really the two would be the transportation and laptops that would go backwards.
What does the mental health support look like? What are we buying?
But he's going to tell you to wait a slide.
Oh, sorry.
No, waiting. I'll have Ms. Cody help with this part of it because there's already quite a bit going on, but we're looking to augment some of that with some of these funds. So if you want to speak to that a little bit. And you do have a report coming up for the board in a couple.
I do,
Yeah.
yes. So I will be updating all of you in May on our bigger work as a district. But just as a reminder, we have been doing quite a bit of work in this area over the last several years. So we have reflected on our universal supports for students, where we're really doing some explicit teaching around social and emotional development. So that happens, that looks different ways at each level. And then last spring, if you recall, we had applied for the mental health grant going into this year. So that's a 2-year grant, and that funding is really supporting our continued development of being able to provide support, school-based mental health support for students who need like a little extra support when it comes to maybe some milder mental health concerns, and then also really looking at how we're addressing the needs of students who need more intensive support. So all year long, the student services team, so the social workers, counselors, and school psychologists have been meeting monthly and working on our professional development days to really do an assessment of our system for mental health referral. So we have a mental health referral pathway that we have really shored up. And then also, again, kind of looking at what our students need based on data, and then looking at kind of what are those gap areas. So some of the areas that we're focusing on, we're continuing to develop our response, like proactive and responsive to suicide, or suicide prevention, anxiety, depression, AODA, and grief and loss actually is another area that we're focusing on. So, so we've been building our capacity as a team to work to address those needs. We'll continue to develop the capacity of our staff and our families through like professional development and youth mental health first aid training is another way that we've been working with community members and families to support them as well. And then the last piece that we're looking at is really how do we help families access the support beyond the school-based support. So our relationship with CPA has really been extremely beneficial. We've continued to increase the staffing there. And the beautiful thing is they are able to work with families in a very short period of time, where a lot of times if you're trying to navigate accessing mental health support, you might be waiting months. So CPA has really been valuable there. And so what we've been doing is we've had a small group together and we've been exploring other options to give families additional opportunities to understand what their needs are and access that support fairly quickly. So, so that's kind of where we're at in a nutshell right now.
So not to put too fine a point on it, but where does the money then actually go?
So
Towards for salaries or training or?
So for example, the student and a family and student assistance program costs a certain amount of money per family. So some of this funding would be allocated for that, to have that available to every family in the district so that you can
So
get
in
those
addition
services.
to CPA, that like CPA right now, again, we always, it's like the bank in the grocery store. So we're, they set up shops. So if we develop a family and assistant,
Student and family
student and family assistance program, it's another, that's again, helping them have access beyond what we can provide within the school. And I don't know how much detail we want to go into that.
And you pay a fee per
Basically,
family.
essentially a
And then
referral
the
program,
family
yeah.
has access, and as we understand it now, we're still learning, to like 4 sessions
Oh.
with a professional counselor for each mental health issue that arises within the family. So
That's huge.
that's a very, very important thing that we are looking at doing.
And thinking about the access, again, being able, if we move forward with this type of service to our families, again, they're not waiting months and months. So
Mhm.
there's someone there who can, assess their needs right away. They have 4 sessions. Based on those 4 sessions, they might be able to help the family. It's 4 sessions even per issue, per se.
So it's a good question about whether it's sustainable or not. So these funds are allocated in response to COVID. And right now, the mental health concerns are perhaps exasperated by COVID. So these funds would go for the next period of time to bring that back down.
Mhm.
And then, of course, the district could decide to fund it moving forward. But
Is it-
that's the.
So is it similar to like an employee assistance
Yep.
program, the employers, but this is
Yep.
it's like somewhat of an insurance model, not everybody's gonna use it, but they can kind of.
Right, and it's quick response and.
But it's outside of the medical insurance model that
It
we're.
is. Doesn't it?
Yes.
So that's one thing, but we're continuing to talk about some other things as well.
So we're getting this $2.6 million roughly, 2.6 or $2.7 million probably, over the course of from now until 2024? Did we get it all?
We have until 2024 to expend it. And the
Okay.
way it works is we expend it first and then we get reimbursed for it.
Okay. And how do we expect it to affect our budget based on what the state is telling us now or what they've told us so far? I mean, we're getting this money, we have to spend it on certain things, but that may help us with shortfalls in the future, or is that not?
Yes, I would say that that's fair. We, like in the first year of COVID, we spent almost $2 million extra. And this is meant to give the district that money back, which then transfers to helping us in the future. We certainly hope that with the next biennial budget, if not a midstream change, with more and more businesses signing on to tell the legislature, you need to fund schools. Schools are important. Kids are important. We need to do this for the state. If that comes to fruition, either in the middle or at the first year of the next biennium, it would help immensely all districts, including ourselves, to get back on track. And yet we still have enough things to spend this on that this money will last us for another year to 2 years.
Does anybody else have questions about the?
So how much is, we do have dollars next to these buckets, or we don't see that? I'm just,
Which buckets do you mean?
well, you had mental health, support, academics. That's
Oh.
the last chart we were looking at. Just want to know, is the bulk of it mental health, or is percent-wise you can tell us, or?
Mental health, right now I have, and this isn't final either,
Oh,
like
okay.
we're not final on our mental health, exactly what we're doing. But we've identified, or I've put in probably $200,000 for mental health support.
You know, we've lost that on the screen.
Oh, well, I turned it off. I thought we were moving on.
Oh.
Summer school is about $240,000 a year. Transportation was about 200,000, laptops was about 400,000, and the rest was literacy and math support. So most of it is in literacy and math support for students.
What does that look like? I'm just curious, what is, like, to your point, what are we spending it on for?
That's salary and benefits for literacy and math coaches and interventionists.
That we've kind of added over the years? I know we have added some of those positions, so this would cover.
Right.
Okay,
Right. It's helping us pay for that.
all right, thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? Thank you. Item 11, School Board Liaison Reports, Personnel and Policy, number 6,000, Philosophy of Education, action item, Dr. Khan and Dr. Mo, please.
So the Philosophy of Education Policy 6000, it was updated in 2013, and because we have a very detailed coherence plan, we are recommending to eliminate the policy 6000.
So we're seeing this basically as in our coherence plan. It's in other documents. It's
redundant.
It's not necessary anymore. It's duplicative.
Yeah.
So the state wasn't making us do this at all way back in the, I always wondered why we had this, but okay. Now it's going away, I won't have to worry.
All right, I'm looking for a motion to eliminate policy number 6,000.
So moved.
Second.
All right, motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Personnel and Policy, policy number 1350, Surveys and Other Educational Research. Dr. Khan and Dr. Mo, please.
So this policy was adopted in 1994. There are just minor changes in the language of the policy, and we are removing the reference of the parent signature because we do obtain the consent, but it's not a standard form. So if you look at that form, just minor changes, and it tells you exactly why we do the research, why we do the research, and etc. So basically, it's a minor change in the language.
So
Please.
how often do we do these studies?
You're rather new. It
Not
might
since
come
I've
up-
been here.
Yeah, it might come up once a year. It
Yeah.
might be one of our professional educators who has to do something for a master thesis or a doctoral program, but it's extremely rare.
Okay, not even once a year then on average?
No.
The only problem I had with this one was where, under administrative rules, it says are subject to change without board approval. And then, as a matter of policy, the school board requires. If we require, you can't change it without board approval. That should be recommends. The school board recommends.
What number or what? Where are you-
It's just above number 1. As a matter of policy, the school board requires the following criteria.
Sure.
Yeah.
Change. Good catch.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? All right, so I'm looking for a motion to approve policy 1350 with the changes that Mr. Alexandrovich suggested.
So moved.
Second.
All right, motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Board liaison reports. Does anybody have a board liaison report? Please.
I will say that SWSA did meet by Zoom. I did share the slide deck with you. Hope you found it interesting. And we'll be back with to discuss anything next week.
I was thinking that perhaps we'd give you that letter again and have you think about that prior to the next meeting so the board can let us know if we can go ahead and sign that.
Okay.
So I'll put that in my message this Friday so you can read it again. It's the one that the business partners or businesses are signing off on, so we can bring that back, Ms. Witkowski and I.
I was wondering if are you considering maybe taking it to our business alliance or?
Yeah, I haven't gotten that far.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
I mean, if we decided we want to sign it, I think we should talk about that perhaps as well, next meeting.
I met with Ms. Sundstrom. I believe Ms. Neese was interviewing candidates at the time. So we touched on a number of curricular topics, including summer school, their ongoing professional development days, which sound like they've been very well planned and met with great appreciation by the people participating. Looking at 9 to 12 English, and then some review of social studies curriculum in light of a recent law that was passed requiring teaching of the Holocaust and other genocides. So just the work is ongoing. If any of you have questions about any specifics, I'm happy to talk to you offline, but it was a very thorough review as per usual.
Thank you.
I was able to meet with Mr. Nelson for my Robinwood liaison. You all basically heard what we talked about. One thing that he pointed out in our conversation was one of the things they're doing at a staff level is really focusing on celebrating even very small accomplishments and just how you change that mindset. You know, if you think about, you might have some bad thing happen, like you miss a stoplight on your way to work. You're like, oh my gosh. But that's one moment in your day, and the rest of the day might be positive. You can't dwell on that one small thing. And talking about in their staff development, just really trying to celebrate their small victories and kind of focus on that more and just kind of generally have a better mindset. So I thought that was kind of an interesting, more positive approach to things. And went out in the classrooms where I saw 4-year-olds using Sharpie markers. I was like having palpitations.
Right.
They were great. They were very successful. And the other thing I thought was interesting, we were in, I want to say it was a 2nd or 3rd grade classroom, I'm going to forget now, but the kids were super excited. They had just moved from a fiction unit to a nonfiction unit. And so they were all gathered around there, like in little groups, like this was the frog group, and this was the spider group, and this was, you know, and so that was really exciting to see them get excited about those topics. But then also, as we were talking about it, the teacher came over and pointed out that part of their excitement was working with different kids, because when you're reading, say, like a fiction book, you're all kind of, you know, like you have your readers who are at this level are going to read this book, and your readers at this level. But when you're doing nonfiction, you could have 6 different books about frogs that are all at different levels, and so the kids get to work with new friends. And so it was just something I had never, you know, all my kids have gone through this program. I never thought about it that way, and so it just was interesting to me to think about just a different strategy for teaching and the kids learning. So it's fun. And then I guess also we had a education foundation meeting. Was it 2 weeks ago? I don't think it's been since our last meeting here. I just would like to point out again our consignment sales coming up April 2nd, and our golf outing that'll go live on, I think it's already live to sign up. June 17th is our big golf outing. So
If it's not live, it will be soon.
I think
We had a meeting.
it's soon.
We had a meeting the other night.
And then our scholarships are open for seniors to be applying for our foundation scholarships.
Thank you. Anybody else? Board liaison reports. School and community engagement reports. Please, Mrs.
I
Witkowski.
did make a quick visit to the high school, Gold Block Monday, when individual instruction is given. So I got it down some integrated math homework.
How'd you do?
Well, it was a little like, what? But by the end, I was able to get one of the answers correct. I was feeling
that's
pretty
good.
good about that. It was Mr. Vogel who was teaching it, so so it was just good to be in high school. Like I said, I'm always amazed how quiet it is when you come in there. Like, where are the kids? But yet when they all go in the hallway, it's all quiet and orderly. It's just amazing. So, yep, that was my little visit.
Thank you. Anyone else?
It's not specifically Franklin Public Schools, but it was hosted at the Saber Center last weekend. Our performance of Annie. We had a couple members of the board with students in the production, but also just in general, it was fun to be there and see really a nearly full theater, and just so many people coming. You know, people who I heard as I was there a little early, somebody walking in and be like, wow, it's really pretty in here. Like somebody who'd never been to the Saber Center before. And just, you know, that kind of moment of pride, like, yeah, we have a really cool, you know, building. And then to watch the kids perform, there were a lot of Franklin kids in that cast, and it was very exciting. They did a really
I
good
think
job.
it is Franklin-centric because it is a rec department program.
Yeah, but there were kids from Muskego and all over the place, so.
Yeah.
Private company that
Yep.
runs it through rec.
Yeah.
But just, you know.
It was cool.
Franklin kids.
And looking ahead, I just will throw out there that there are multiple concerts next week. Our middle schoolers are in transition between third quarter and fourth quarter. So the kids who have been in band, choir, orchestra for the third quarter will be doing their performances next week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday night, 7 o'clock. Come on out.
How long are they? 2 hours?
Oh,
No,
they're
less
like
than
an
an hour,
hour.
because it's real quick.
Yeah.
It's less than an hour for each one.
It's just a grade level, yeah, so
Oh,
it's,
okay.
or,
It's
It's-
band.
it's
so
short.
It's, yeah.
Okay,
Like
just
each,
checking.
it's not grade level, but it's,
I
you know,
just
like
have
one
to,
night is
yeah,
choir,
recycle.
one night is orchestra, one night
I
is
mean,
band.
sounds like your week is pretty full of the arts.
Well, and a number of us went to the Chambers Awards, which was a fabulous event. It was so different to be, people were dressed up and in person, and it's amazing, wasn't it? It was a real, like,
It was a nice event.
it's like we're back, kind of. And we had our book study too, right? Just give a hand back for that. I loved the book study.
All right, thank you, everyone. School board meeting debriefing. Does anybody have any comments?
Who's
Love
gonna
seeing
be
the kids.
responding to the request for Friday movies and popcorn? We were all.
Well, I do think
I think she
coming
deserves a
up,
response.
I do think coming up, we are going to be talking about our wellness,
Good,
our
the
wellness policy.
I'll
So,
probably write her a little note.
So it will be on the agenda.
so we'll be on the agenda. When I was there that day, I did mention maybe that I didn't think that was something the school board had to talk about, is whether they could have movie day on
But you do have it, right? Just
on
every
Friday.
You want
So,
every Friday.
Might have to update your copyright laws policy if we're gonna have movie day.
That's true.
It is always fun to have the students here, and they do such a good job. And the leadership kids talking about,
That
you
was
know,
nice.
their leadership activities and stuff. I thought that was great.
yeah, that food drive was kind of amazing how they brought all that together. All right, future agenda items, district administrator goals update, board self-evaluation discussion. I know those went out to be filled out. SWSA updates, Franklin High School presentation, Saber Center update. All right, I'm looking for a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. The meeting is adjourned at 8:02.